Business and politics. I'm Roby, joined by Senator Tom Cotton as we connect to Congress. Senator, good to have you with us. Let's begin with the federal government shutdown, the longest one in U.S. history. This all seems to be over the president's call for a $5 billion wall along the Mexican border. It seems like there's an easy solution here to me, sitting from my common sense perch here. The Senate passed some spending bills to open the government before Christmas. The House has sent some of those same bills back over to the Senate. Why is it not that simple to reopen the government?
Roby, the problem we have is that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer won't sit down with the president to negotiate that kind of compromise solution. The president is willing to do so. As you say, he's requested $5 billion for funding to build a wall on the southern border, but also to build more infrastructure to help house some of the migrants we have coming across our border, which is creating a genuine crisis. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer simply will not sit down to have that kind of negotiation. That's where we need to start.
But there was an agreement in place before Christmas that the Senate voted on unanimously before you guys left for the Christmas break. Those same bills have come back from the House to the Senate again, but Leader McConnell won't bring them up for a vote. Why can't you just pass the bills that there was already an agreement for?
Well, Roby, we've had change since December, and that change is Nancy Pelosi is now the Speaker of the House. She has explicitly said that even if the president accepted those kind of proposals and reopened the departments that have been closed, she still would not budge on the wall. Remember, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer in the past have voted for hundreds of miles of wall, much more than what the president is asking for now. We are in divided government, Roby. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are going to have to sit down with the president, whether they like him or not, to try to reach some kind of compromise solution. I'd like to see those departments reopened as soon as possible, but I also want to see our border secure, and I think that's what most Arkansans want as well.
Well, that $5 billion that we're talking about here, that was not part of the agreement before the Christmas break when the Senate voted on those bills. I just don't understand what has changed when those spending bills are the same as there was an agreement in place before. It just does not seem to me that that should be the issue.
Well, Roby, again, the change is that Nancy Pelosi is now the Speaker of the House, and she refuses to negotiate now while those departments are shut down, or if the president accepted those kind of proposals after those departments were reopened. That's simply not the way you get something done in divided government. And frankly, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer seem to be more focused on giving the president a political defeat than they are on securing our southern border and addressing the crisis that we face with so many migrant families trying to cross our border.
All right, we're on a short time span here. Let me ask you one last question here. We've seen a lot of Russian headlines this last couple of days in terms of the president and Russia. You have voted, at least on a procedural motion, to not ease some sanctions on an oligarch that the administration wants to ease some sanctions on. Are you concerned about the president's attitude towards Russia? What's the rationale for some of the moves that he's made and your apparent opposition to some of those moves?
Well, Roby, in general, over the last 2 years, we've seen a much tougher policy towards Russia than we did for 8 years under Barack Obama's administration. Remember, Barack Obama was president when Russia invaded Crimea and eastern Ukraine, when they surged back into Syria and became a power broker in the Middle East again, and he largely stood by and watched those things happen. By contrast, under this administration, with the support from the Congress, we've provided defensive weapons to the Ukrainians. We've twice bombed Vladimir Putin's client in the Middle East, Bashar al-Assad. We've closed diplomatic facilities. We've expelled some of their diplomats for spying. I do have a disagreement with the Treasury Department on this one specific issue, although I generally support all the sanctions that have been imposed. I don't think there's been enough steps taken by this gangster oligarch to divest from Russia's aluminum company to lift sanctions on them. Some of my colleagues have a difference of opinion, but I disagree. He may be below 50% a controlling share in that company. That may work for the United States, but on the streets of Moscow, that's not the way the world works.
20 seconds left here. Should the United States withdraw from NATO, as the president has reportedly privately discussed?
Well, Roby, NATO is a very successful military alliance. Of course, we should not withdraw from it. I don't necessarily credit reports that I've seen in the New York Times or Washington Post, though, about the president's private conversations. They've been notoriously wrong before.
All right, Senator Tom Cotton, thank you for your time, and we will see you back in Arkansas soon. Thank you.